There's a story that I didn't cover on May the 12th when the world watched a moment of human triumph from the deepest darkness as Edan Alexander, 21-year-old American-Israeli, was abducted by Hamas during the October the 7th attack and was released 584 days into captivity. His homecoming is a visceral reminder of war's inhumanity, but also of diplomacy's potential and of the obligation shared by the global community to protect the vulnerable. This is not just one young man's ordeal. It's a story that lays bare the brutality of hostage-taking and the promises that must now be fulfilled. Edan Alexander's captivity was not merely long, it was harrowing. Held in Gaza's underground tunnels, starved, beaten, injured, at times blindfolded, Edan endured sensory deprivation, psychological torment, physical pain, torture. And the explosion of Israeli strikes overhead shook the very ground around him. He was nicknamed the American by his captors, not as an honour but as a strategic asset. His mother, Yael, described their reunion as a moment time stood still. For her, hope was not a sentiment but an act of faith, a faith that daily battled despair. That Edan survived is a testament to his inner strength, but the fact that he had to endure it at all is a reminder of how hostage-taking as a political tool is a crime against humanity and must be seen as such. His wounds, psychological and physical, must remain in our minds as we consider what justice and recovery actually mean. What makes this release so remarkable is not merely what happened to him, but how. The Trump administration, through envoys Steve Witkoff and Adam Boer, secured Alexander's release in a direct negotiation with Hamas without Israeli mediation. The deal included no prisoner exchange, no ceasefire guarantee, only humanitarian access, a corridor, and what was described as a gesture of good faith. Witkoff and Boer's approach was unusually pragmatic. Boer controversially had earlier stated that members of Hamas don't have horns, provoking outrage, but perhaps hinting at the human level contact necessary for breakthroughs of this kind. Edan's release represents the return of diplomacy at its most uncomfortable, negotiating with the intolerable to rescue the innocent. For the United States, Edan's return is more than a personal victory. It's a reaffirmation that American citizens abroad, especially those trapped in conflicts not of their own making, remain a priority. It also sets a precedent that US diplomacy is willing to be direct, unflinching, and at times controversial in the pursuit of life over ideology. It's elevated Trump's role in the Middle East once again, repositioning him not only as a statesman but as a negotiator who can achieve what others perhaps could not. Whether this is enduring policy or opportunistic theatrics remains to be seen, but for the Alexander family, it meant rescue, not rhetoric. For Israel, the release is a bittersweet moment. Prime Minister Netanyahu claimed military and diplomatic pressure led to Edan's freedom. That's not really very realistic, is it? And Netanyahu's military pressure is not something I think anybody should be crowing about. But the Alexanders notably withheld any thanks to the Israeli government, which I think is the right thing to do. There has to be a distinction in this story between the appalling experience of October the 7th and the hostage-taking and the mass killing and the brutality of terrorism and the brutality of Netanyahu's military response, which has gone on and on and on and hasn't achieved its aims. Many in Israel ask now, why has it taken so long? Why have only fragments of hope been offered to the remaining families? The fact that 57 hostages remain, with 20 believed to be alive, underscores Israel's dilemma to fight Hamas militarily while also negotiating with it diplomatically. The Israeli public remains overwhelmingly committed to bringing back every hostage, but faith in the government's ability to do so is faltering. Edan's return reignites this debate, as well as questions over how humanitarian aid, ceasefire deals and hostage releases can coexist. Gaza stands on the brink of famine, with humanitarian aid cut, medicine short, and infrastructure destroyed. Edan's release might offer a fragile hope for negotiation. Hamas, for all its crimes, used this moment as a gesture, perhaps cynical, but no less potent for its potential consequences. If more hostages are released, could this not open a window to longer-term humanitarian corridors, or even a phased ceasefire and an end to these hostilities? No hostage release should mask the horror that Edan and others endured. No political gain justifies that suffering. And while Hamas frames this as a strategic generosity, the brutality of hostage-taking in the first place is a crime that demands accountability. Edan Alexander is free, his family is whole again, but this moment isn't an end. It's the beginning of what must be a global effort to ensure that hostage diplomacy is not normalised, that humanitarian access is not contingent upon leverage, and that war doesn't erase the humanity of individuals. For America, Edan's release is a small victory in a much larger moral test. For Israel, it's a warning that military strategy must be matched with humane resolve, and for Gaza it's a signal, however faint, that a different path may yet be possible. If we ignore that promise, we risk allowing this cycle of vengeance and grief to repeat endlessly. I hope Edan's freedom is a promise that can be kept not only to his parents, but to all those waiting in the dark. And Yael Alexander said, my heartbeat returned in sync with his. That heartbeat now belongs not only to a mother and son, but to a watching world. And we must hope that it doesn't fall silent again. We must hope that sound minds prevail, and that pressure can be brought not only on Hamas, but on Netanyahu to stop this mindless thuggery.